everyone, and welcome back. Today I want to talk about strategy. Strategy is still a very misunderstood term, but it can be defined as a detailed plan to achieve an overarching goal or aim or objective. And this is a pretty broad definition, but when looking at its origin, you can draw a parallel and see that it's really helpful, if not crucial, even for a business context. So for that, I want to get into the military, where the term comes from, and work out parallels or similarities to business. So here you have your military, your government, here you have your business, and both of them have an objective. So for the military, it would be prosperity or national security. There are others, but these two are the most important ones. Same as for the business, growth and profit are usually the goals or aims of a business. Now, why strategy? Both of those institutions, both of those organisms work towards an objective but have two big constraints, and those are complexity and scarcity. So complexity means not all of their actions can be linked to a specific outcome. So even though you want something to achieve and work in every manner in order to achieve a goal, it's not guaranteed that this will happen, because the context, the system where all these actions take place are complex, and you do have feedbacks or reactions or even connections that you don't understand or don't even know of. So that's complexity, and both businesses and the government works in a complex environment. Then the second constraint is scarcity. So no matter how much you know about your environment and your context, you are always constrained in what actions you can take. So most of the times it's about your financial restraints, your power restraints, your human capital restraints that lead to scarcity of all your resources, which means in effect that you cannot take every action needed, even though the context tells you to. And because of these two constraints and still objectives that are highly achievable or that are important for the two actors to achieve, military developed and businesses adopted strategy as the solution for this problem. And I want to get through 3 steps that are at the core of every strategic decision, every strategic action. And these are context, instruments, and systems. So in order to achieve the objective, both of these actors get familiar with their context. So where, in what system do they work in? Even though it's complex, you can still try and figure some inherent properties of the system out. So for the government or military, it's the geography of your country, it's economics, it's internal and foreign policy, politics and policies, as well as agendas. So what is the economic power of your nation? Are you a dictatorship? Are you a democracy? So is the context of your, or the agenda of your politics, prosperity for your people, or is it the grip on power for a dictatorship? I would not classify those as the objectives, but as the agendas or the underlying paradigms that they work in. So that's related to context. For context, in the business, for the business actor, you will talk about macroeconomics. So you will talk about macroeconomics, markets, your customers, competitors, suppliers, shareholders, the environment of the technology, and your legal framework. That's your context for the business. And I'm not a military strategist, so I do not know how they gather and prioritize the information in the context. But as you all know, big militaries, big governments have huge intelligence apparatus to inform the policymakers. As I am a business consultant, I do know the process for the information gathering in the context of business. So big companies would do big analysis. So you can analyze your markets, you can analyze your customers, your competitors, your suppliers. You can use various different frameworks and concepts in order to gather and structure the information about this environment that your business works in. And that's what usually consultants also do. They have huge chunks of information from different projects, customers, markets, and they would structure this information in order to find the right context for decision making for the specific case they're working on. And that's similar to the military. So what you do next, you have your context and then you have your instruments. Your instruments in the context of the military, of the government, are your army, your navy, your sanctions, diplomacy, and foreign policy and alliances. So these are instruments that are used to come from the context to your objectives. And here the process is broken down into easier steps. So if you have the context right for the specific objective, it's easier to choose which instrument is the most useful one for the strategy you want to pursue. For example, if you know all about the geography, the economics, and the foreign policy of an adversary, you have an easier decision-making process when choosing between the army or sanctions as a respective reaction towards an aggression from this adversary. And same goes for business. So if you do understand your context and want to work towards your objective, it's easier if you have knowledge about the market, customers, and competitors in order to choose whether you use marketing or sales or a special finance model or stronger product development when going towards this objective. Now, the last part of your strategy process is the forming of systems, and I deem it to be the most important one because your objectives rarely change over time. You would want to institutionalize or to standardize your answer your answer to the question what instrument is used in which context. So in the sense of military, back in the days, a military consisted of farmers with their tools running into each other, and then politicians, back in the days, kings and warlords, they got to standardize their instruments in the use of context in a war. So most of them got a standing army. Most of them, most of the countries nowadays got big in military industrial complexes. They have dedicated battle groups to special situations. They do have built-in and formulated alliances like Five Eyes or NATO. And you do have a structured way in balancing with other key branches of your government when working towards the objectives of prosperity that is overarching national security. And with exactly the same process, you can really understand why I always talk about a business is a set of systems. Um, these systems, in the sense of a business, are just the institutionalized use of the instruments in different contexts when working towards an objective. So to mention some examples here too, you have usually when you build a business and it's up and running and has or is in the process of formulating standard operating procedures for the use of different instruments in different contexts. You do have automations, corporate structures, cultures, and even ways of interacting with one another inside of the business in order to have all your instrument usage institutionalized. Why would you do that? Same as for the army, you reduce scarcity by that. So if you have institutions that have running systems, or if you have corporates or automations that run systems, run instrument usage in specific contexts, you are going to have less cost per action than before. This means you usually can react to more scenarios, have sharper instruments, and more useful tactics or operations for businesses when dealing with different contexts. In so that's why with context you minimize complexity, with systems you minimize scarcities when implementing your instruments for the achievement of your objectives. So to summarize all that, as a military officer, as someone who makes national policy, you want to understand your context, your geographies, your economics. You want to have and build and develop strong instruments, useful tools to get to your objectives, and you want to institutionalize them. Same way as a business owner or even as a consultant, I do this work from time to time. I look at the context, the markets, the customers, the suppliers, help business owners sharpen their tools in marketing, sales, finance, and operations management, so on, and help them formulate them into systems, into institutionalized systems that run on standard operating procedures in order to achieve their objectives, growth, profit, their vision, or getting big funding. It doesn't matter what the objectives are. If you are in a complex environment where you have scarce resources and tools, strategy is the way to go. And these three steps are my breakdown of how strategy works in every context.